You know, I've been working on this issue for years now. I think I was looking back when I was preparing last night for being here with you today, and I think the first paper I published on this issue was in 2006. And I can tell you, since 2006, we've been told that this South Fraser Perimeter Road, which is threatening Burns Bog, was a done deal. Ever since 2006, when the public consultation started, 2007, they just asked us, well, what color do you want your bridge to be? Nobody ever said, do you want this to happen, or is this the way you want your money to be spent? And I'm here to tell you today that this project is far from a done deal, that this bog is far from being beyond the hope, and this is something that we can still do very much about. So as you walk across this bridge, I want you to look off to the left and off to the right. And off to the right, you're going to see one of the most important ecological areas in this entire region. Burns Bog is not only metaphorically the lungs of the Lower Mainland. Burns Bog is the lungs of the Lower Mainland. And that's your lungs, that's my lungs, that's all of our lungs. That area cleans the air, it cleans the water, it provides habitat for species. It's invaluable. It's beyond anything that you could put a dollar value on. And that's being put at risk with this highway that's proposed. When you look off to the right, you'll see very, very far in the distance, you can see that the bog does not begin and end in the Delta Nature Reserve. This whole region is part of a bog. This whole region is part of an ecosystem that's interconnected. You know, the Fraser River is no less part of the bog than you or I are. The farmland that surrounds it is no less part of the bog than you or I are. Everything in this region is part of an interconnected web of life that you or I are the stewards of. We can either be part of helping to protect that area, or we can be part of allowing it to be taken away. And when you are told that that highway is not going to harm the bog, that's really short-sighted. It's not understanding that the relationship between that farmland and between the Fraser River and the bog is already so threatened by all the development that has happened for over a century now. This is just the latest incursion into a very, very sensitive area. And when you look off to the left, I think you're going to see something quite interesting, though. You may be able to see from a distance the big teepee that's set up at an action camp that was set up by a bunch of activists and protesters, many of which are people who I've been working with for years, trying to do what would be said as the reasonable thing, you know, to meet with government, to talk to our friends and neighbors, to knock on doors. And I can tell you these people have knocked on hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of doors throughout Delta and Surrey, have held you know, countless dozens of public information meetings, have come together and tried to petition in the most peaceful and friendly way possible their friends and neighbors to say something to stop this you know, horrible South Fraser Perimeter Road project. And they've just said enough is enough. And you'll be able to see them as you walk across the bridge with their camp set up. There's about a dozen or 2 dozen people who have just simply put themselves in between the machines and the protection of the ravine that runs along the side of the South Fraser Perimeter Road proposal area. That whole region is in danger. That whole region is about to be cut off from the Fraser River. But there's people who are putting themselves in between the machines and the future. And they're saying that this is unacceptable and we're not going to leave until this project goes forward. I, for one, you know, support them, and I hope that you do as well. Thank you. Yeah. I think some of the people who are camped out might actually be joining us here today, and I hope that you get a chance to meet them, because it really is a wide range of people. I've been hearing stories of, you know, people showing up in the morning with Tim Hortons donuts for folks, you know, who live in the surrounding area. You know, the other night there was a big turkey that was brought by a few of our friends from Burns Bog, you know, just to help with the folks there so that they had something good to eat. You know, and I think you're going to hear more and more in the media about how this is just a bunch of radical activists, and this is just a bunch of, you know, crazy kids like the Black Bloc who are involved in the Olympics. And I can tell you that there's a whole range of people there. There are some, you know, angry activists, there's no doubt about that. But there's also a lot of just local citizens. There's a kid who lives just down the street who spends much of his time at this site. And it's important that we don't allow the media to tell us that it's only the crazy people who protest. It's only the angry people who protest. Because that protest camp is for everybody. And it's open to anybody who's really got a concern about what's going on. I hope that it's a turning point. You know, when they tell us that this road is almost finished, Jeff Freer, the guy who runs the Gateway program, actually said that it's only a quarter completed. And I think that's important to remember. I mean, a quarter completed is a long, long way from finished. If you look at the Georgia Viaduct in Vancouver, that was originally going to be a highway that connected downtown Vancouver to Highway 1. Highway 1 was going to be doubled in size, and they were going to build a ring road that connected the port to the highway. That's the exact same project that we're looking at right now. The only difference is they were smart enough not to start in the city because they knew we wouldn't allow it to happen in Vancouver. It's the exact same project, and we stopped that project in 1970, and we can stop it just as easily now. Woo! But the important thing to remember, though, thank you. Yeah. important thing to remember is that that Georgia Viaduct was already completed by the time they finished the highway. There was already construction underway. It wasn't in the environmental assessment process. It wasn't at the early stages of development where that highway was stopped. It was when the bulldozers actually started showing up and taking away people's homes. And that's exactly where we are right now with this project. We're at that early stage where homes are starting to be taken away. You know, some of the ravines are being clear-cutted, but yet there's so much that can be protected. There's so much that can be stopped. You know, not only just the homes and the areas that are being cut that need protecting, but also there's a midden that's about to have pavement put right over top of it, a very important archaeological site, an area that's, you know, beyond any sort of monetary value to the First Nations persons who have their history underground there. There's archaeologists going up and down that coast looking at that area. Also, some of the most important historical sites for the community of Delta are facing potentially being trashed. There's a cannery right on the other side of the freeway here that is potentially going to be taken down, all to make way for this highway that I can tell you the vast majority of people who live in and around the community, you know, feel very strongly that they do not want coming through their neighborhood. But this issue is not only important to folks who live in Delta and Surrey. As a climate activist, I actually think that that is ground zero of the fight against climate change, right across that highway. You know, this is an issue that's not just important to us here as British Columbians, but I think is important to all of Canada, and even has importance beyond that. Because that highway is to expand the port so that we can triple the number of goods moving in and out. Anybody who tells you this will reduce congestion is not telling you the truth. The plan is to bring 3 times as many big trucks along that route. And you know, if you live in any city that has automobiles, that's like smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. You know, if somebody in this group started smoking a cigarette right now, it would make many of us uncomfortable. But yet as we stand here, these trucks come and go, and all these cars come and go, and we don't even think about the fact that we're being exposed to the exact same toxins that come out of a cigarette. You know, and the implications of that are even bigger when we look at it in the international level. Did you know right now in Pakistan, there's many people living in environmental refugee camps as live in the whole province of British Columbia. And in the last 10 years, we've seen a doubling of extreme weather events because of climate change. So at least some portion, maybe even half of those people, are there because of climate change. And I can tell you that if that road is allowed to be built on the other side of this highway, it's going to drastically increase not only our own CO2 from automobiles, but it's also going to increase the CO2 and the contribution to it by all that traffic moving in and out from that port expanding that has impacts not only on the migratory birds and the whales and you and I and our farmland, which are so important, but has much broader implications. We are the last step in between the Athabasca tar sands and the new expanding markets in Asia and in California and elsewhere. And all of that oil, all of the coal that goes through the biggest coal port in this entire region, which is right over there, all of that, we are standing in between. And I think the people at that protest camp are standing up to say no to that future, to that vision of that future, but also to say yes to a totally different vision. A vision where we actually learn and respect from the past, what we know from the past, what the indigenous peoples who've lived on this land sustainably for so many years are trying to pass on to us. And to really listen to the voices of the folks around the world, like those in Africa, and those in Asia, and those in Latin America, who are already feeling the effects of climate change. So I'm going to leave you with one thought. You know, a couple of weeks ago, many of you may have been at the Earth Day parade that was organized by a bunch of young people, and I was very proud to be a part of it. At that Earth Day parade, we tried to bring back the peace sign. We had this idea of recycling the peace sign. Will you all share with me in putting up a peace sign? Thank you. The peace sign, you know, not only do we need to be at peace with the Earth, and I think we do. I think we need to think about just simply being at peace with the Earth, because in many ways we are not at peace with the Earth right now. We're in conflict with the Earth. But to even take that a step further, I think we need to look at the number 2. Because 2 degrees increase in temperature on this planet is the difference between sustainability and the lack of sustainability. You know, when your child is sick and you pull a thermometer from their mouth and it says that their temperature has gone up 2 degrees, your child is very ill. And the difference between being ill or not for this planet is very much the same. You know, your body is like a system that's in balance. And when it goes up 2 degrees, it's thrown very much out of balance. It can mean everything from hot flashes to cold chills to, you know, just feeling very dizzy, woozy, completely out of, you know, out of sorts. So I ask you to think for the planet that we need to stop that increase of 2 degrees. And one of the very important things we can do is we can stop the flow of oil coming through our ports. And the other important thing we can do is we can stop this mad rush to pave over everything in our province and to move more and more cars and trucks instead of moving people by trains and public transportation. You know, we really do have a choice right now, and I think the choice is happening right on the other side of that bridge. So please, remember, we need to be at peace with the Earth, and we can do this. This is something that's very achievable. It takes a group like this one to make change, and I believe that this is really the turning point that we're at right now. So thank you all so much for being here today for this very important March to Burnswald.